You know, I ran across a scripture this morning in Isaiah 58. It says that for one of the things about the Sabbath is that you stop your own pleasures, doing your own thing, and speaking words. I knew right off I wasn't going to make that one. Anyway, this is an awesome time for me and was an answer to prayer. I wanted to tell you all that one time two little ladies, one was at 92 and the other one was 97. They're sisters, cigar smoking sisters. And they called me and said, we should have a Bible study at your house, but we don't have a car to get there. And I said, I'll come get you. I'll come get you tonight. So I went after them. And we read the word and talked together and prayed about things. And when we got through, they went out on the porch and smoked their cigars, those little bitty short ones, you know. But anyway, they said, well, I think we ought to do this all the time. To make a long story short, after 4.5 years, we had increased to 59 adults and 13 children. And the children were in such peace that they slept on the floor. And a lady came in her Lincoln Continental. Mary, I think, used to have one of those that somebody gave her out of mercy. Out of mercy. Anyway, this lady came, and they owned a monstrous restaurant, seafood stuff. Good. Wonderful. But anyway, she came and she had her mink stole on and she was all dressed up. I don't know what she changed after she came the first time, because when she came in, they had to move aside so she could get in the door, and then she sat down on the couch. Somebody squeezed over. She sat down on the couch and she went testing for dust, and it was positive. But she had her mink stole on, and she thought, well, I won't. This is a weird bunch of people. They all look like y'all, and they weren't dressed up, and they had babies laying on the floor on sheets and blankets and sound asleep and like they'd been drugged. And she thought something was really going on really strange, and she was so highfalutin that she didn't want to get mixed up in anything weird. I've never worried about getting mixed up in something weird because I found out it was weird after a while. But anyway, after a while, she thought, I know what I'll do. I'll go through the crowd and go to the bathroom. So she waded through and went sliding door to my bedroom. She slid the door open, went inside, pulled the door shut. To her horror, there were 3 6-foot-long tables with buffalo hides rolled up. And the buffalo hides were rolled up, were about this huge, and they were laid out on the table, and they smelled bad. Above my bed, I had to have a single bed because it wasn't no more room. And above the bed was a eyeless and toothless buffalo skull, with hair, but it hadn't drained itself really bad, so it was hanging over my bed. So she went in the bathroom and closed the door, and she was really in a state of shock because she really was not in her class with us. And she stayed in there, and then she noticed there's a window. She thought, oh, when in doubt, pull out. So she climbed up on the counter, and she tried to, but it was 11 feet off of the ground. So she was stuck again. So she came back through the buffalo smells and came in there, and by then the crowd had gotten bigger and the whole doorway was plugged with people. So she was stuck. They had saved her a spot, so she had her spot. She ended up getting saved. And all 3 of her boys got saved. And I had an above ground little pool that was 12 feet across and 3 feet deep. And they wanted to be baptized. They didn't want to wait. It was out in the yard and everything, and bless their hearts, they were so precious. They were so innocent. They were teenagers, but they were serious in the Lord. They came running out of the house in nothing but their underwear and jumped in ready to be baptized. And I baptized them in hope that the neighbors didn't think something was unusual going on. And it wouldn't have been the first time. But anyway, I have found awesome things. And we got to be such a crowd. And people would come and just park everywhere. And I'd say, now, before we start, communion is sacred. Mm-mm. It's awesome. And before we'd start, every time I'd say the same thing and start it all over because somebody new would come. So you didn't just dump them and say, well, make it up on the side as you can. So I said, right now we're going to give thanks for the bread and we're going to give thanks for the wine. And uh, I said the wine, but it was grape juice at that time. Other times I used wine, but I knew that there were some people that'd be nervous, so I just did fit one size didn't fit all, you know. So anyway, I said, now this we're gonna pray about this, and everyone bow your head. We're gonna pray about it, and I'm gonna read some scriptures. So we went over Isaiah 52, the 13th verse on down, and all of Isaiah 53, and I backed up and we did it again. You know, repetition is good for the soul. I was going to wave back, but was waving y'all down. But anyway, and so I said, now we're going to we've just read about Isaiah 52 and 53, and now we're going to go to 1 Corinthians 10th chapter, 16th and 17th verse, and then the 11th chapter, 23, on down to the bottom of that. So we went through that. I had everybody get their Bibles out. I happened to have a bunch on the side, and as usual. And so we got them all out, and we read that, and then we talked about it. And then we went back over Isaiah again. And I said, now, when it's time to take the Lord's Supper after we've visited and everything, and I said, this house is just a place to meet. It belongs to me, but I won't accept any money. And this vase that I still have, and it's so beat up, but it's about this tall. And I said, if anybody wants to put any dimes or nickels or dollars in there and think, this is not for me. This is for anyone you know that has a need. If they're hungry or they need milk or they need groceries or anything, we'll take it out of here, dump it on the table, count it out, and you take it to wherever they have. And if you're afraid they're going to ruin it, you use it for something recreational. I said, if you think it's going to happen, then you find they have a need and you go take the money and get it yourself and give it to them and tell them it is a gift from the Lord and not from anybody, and that you don't know who it comes from, because we didn't know who it came from. We just dumped it in there. So it worked out great. Well, and I said, when we're going to take the Lord's Supper, it says, judge yourself so somebody else won't judge you. And I said, I'd rather go and talk to the Lord about it. I don't want to go and talk to you because you're going to go, did you know? Blah, blah, blah. And by the time you get through, I'm ruined, you know. The list is so long. And so I said, here's what we're going to do. We're going to have our meeting here, and now y'all get used to things. We're going to have phone calls probably, because I don't know how it happens except Lord causes it, but people will call and ask for prayer. And we all get together and we pray immediately when that person calls. But we put it down, your name and who you wanted prayed for, and what the message, what was the need, and the date right there. And I said, I'm going to tell you this, before the end of 7 days when we meet again, they're done. Everyone is answered. Woo, it got hairy. We got phone calls. I've got a cassette tape that plays, and it's about a lady called from the hospital. She's crying, and she said, my son is bleeding to death, and the doctors don't know why, and Brackenridge Hospital emergency room doesn't know what to do with it. Would you pray? I said, yes, and I told everybody about it, and I said, Lord, What is it? Oh, I said, Father, in Jesus' name, I ask that you plug up the 3 holes that are the size of a dime in his stomach and stop the bleeding for your glory to be seen and your grace to be understood. Excuse me, I get excited. Don't go to football games, they're boring. But anyway, she said, oh, all right, and she was crying, and she hung up the phone, and about an hour later, she called, and she said, Ray, they went in there, and they looked, and they found that there had been 3 holes in his stomach, and they've sealed up. Somebody was overhearing. It's sealed up. And now, what are we going to do, Miss Sparks? I said, why? He said, he's leaving. They want to keep him 24 hours to see what's wrong with him. And he won't stay, and we want to come out to your house. It's the craziest bunch I ever heard. There were 8 family members. How they got in the cars, I don't know. Because Ray was as tall as all of you all. He was really big. He was not fat. He was just huge. Anyway, he was wild as a March hare. Anyway, they all came, and he sat down at the piano and started playing. Everybody was laughing and singing. So I've got the tape, and I was going to loan it to Mary, but I don't think she could stay with it because it's 90 minutes of hollering and praising God, and craziest thing you ever heard of. And they were just wonderful people. I wondered yesterday and this morning, I thought about him, and I wondered where in the world he was. Wherever he is, I'm sure that he's just as wild as he ever was, because he was really turned on to the Lord. Anyway, so another time, some people called and said, this lady said, my son has fallen off of the scaffolding of the hospital, St. David's Hospital, and he has broken bones everywhere and brain damage. And they said that his brain is swelling, and they don't know what to do about it. Would you pray? Somebody said at the 7-Eleven, said you'd pray for him. Well, I get several people from 7-Eleven every once in a while. But anyway, I said, sure. And I told everybody, and everybody stood up and gathered in close. And she could hear all this racket going on. And everybody was praying. And I said, and Father, like in the days of Noah when you did such a miracle, draw off the fluids out of his brain, like you drew off the waters of the flood. And thank you so much, and I know you've already heard all of us. And she hung up the phone, and that crazy person, he was in a body cast, and his brain was swelling, and she called back about 24 hours later and said, though they've decided to put needles in his head, and they drew off the water out of his brain, and he's going to be all right. But she said, he's already talking, and he wants to go fishing, and he's in a body cast. I said, try to talk him out of it. But then I said, you can't swim if you've got a body cast. And she said, I know. And then the Lord was just overwhelming to the people, and the crowd got bigger all the time and got more excited all the time. And one man that had stalked me for 3 years, and I didn't know it. Thank God I didn't know it. I was going to prayer meetings and my interest was only in the Word of God, and I didn't know anybody was stalking me or anything. And then here he showed up at the house, and it was horrible. I can't tell you anything about it except for 3 hours I quoted scripture I didn't even know I knew. I went from room to room to room to bathroom to clothes closet to back and forth. And after 3 hours, I called a friend of mine called me, and she said, I'm getting evicted. I said, oh, okay. She said, something wrong? I said, you sure are right. Oh, would you like to help? She said, I'll be right there. Well, she ended up coming, and that person took off and left. And I didn't tell anybody. He'd been in the state hospital on heavy stuff for years. And I didn't want to run him for sure and have him arrested or thrown away somewhere. And so I didn't say anything to anybody. And one night, here was this whole big gang of people, look like y'all, you know, some big stuff, people everywhere. And here he came, and he walked in, and I thought, oh, hope it's not show and tell again. Anyway, he came in and he sat down, and he couldn't read a Bible or anything because he is on so many tranquilizers. Everything was fuzzy to him. And he sat down and he listened, and he came 3 or 4 Friday nights in a row. And then all of a sudden, he came with a Bible. He said, I've started being able to read the Bible. Well, he got healed. I never told on him. I never did anything. And he never did do anything bad or anything. And about 2 years later, I found out he got married and he hadn't killed her or anything else, you know. And everything worked out. But let me tell you, there's an awesome thing in the Word that you've got to know, and that's be still. Be still. Don't jump up and say, bang, or don't go up and report or anything. Be still. When it's be still and know, and somebody said something about that last night. Be still and know. And why? Who's in charge when you're be still? You're getting wisdom and knowledge and getting closer to Him and learning more about His way instead of your junk. I'm like somebody just dives off a diving board before I look to see that the pond was not water in it, you know. But anyway, be still, quiet, and everything. And in Isaiah 58, it says, a fast of words, speaking words. Boy, you'll talk to yourself half the time. What did I do that for? Well, you're speaking words, stupid, you know. It's nearly impossible. It's like trying to tie your right foot behind your head, you know, and then you're going to do a dance somewhere. But anyway, no. But you've got to be still. And I go in my little prayer room that hardly has room for anything. I close the door. If I don't close the door, I hear all kinds of crud going on outside. And I hear the dog. I hear everything. Well, and the dogs think I'm being unfaithful to them, I think, because they keep wanting to come in the door. But I close the door and I sit there quietly. And then I start thinking, well, be still. Okay, when you're still and you're trusting and waiting, you're not somebody that's doing nothing. It's a lot of doing to be still. It's an isometric faith. It's an isometric training system for your faith, because you are there and you're to listen for Him. I wonder how long many years he's waited for me to shut up. Long time. But anyway, when you're still, then you are open to His wisdom. And one place in the Word it says, cease from your own wisdom. Well, smart aleck. That's hard to do, isn't it? Cease from your own wisdom. We think we've got it figured out. Nobody's got it figured out. But anyway, we had all this gang of people, and I said, now when we're going to take the Lord's Supper, it's here on the table, and we've given thanks, and we've praised Him for it. And I said, now judge yourself. And I said, by that I mean, I'm going to go outside behind a tree somewhere, and somebody can go in the hall, somebody can go in the bathroom. You can go down the hall and or in the yard and sit in your car. If it takes you 5 minutes, 5 hours, or 2 or 3 days, it won't make any difference. I'll just come and see if you're still alive. But go and talk to Him in person. Ask Him to show you what pleases Him. And what would it take for you to clean up your life and roll the care over on Him? because he cares for you more than you care for yourself, you know. I'd like to do something that's probably the worst kind of thing in the world, you know. I'll go do something and knock the crust right off my toe, you know, and hurt myself. I've done it so many times, it's just awful, stupid. But anyway, whenever you, and I said, when you get back in here, you go and take your Lord's Supper. And you can either go home, you can sit down on the couch and read, or just pray, or whatever you want to do. And nobody's in a hurry. And one night I said, I would like to know if somebody will tell me, why is it you're coming over to this house? I don't give you refreshments. I don't offer you coffee. You can have water and you can go to the bathroom. But you're not getting fed. Why do you come? And I was surprised because I didn't think it was, I didn't realize it. They said, well, I've come because I heard you take the Lord's Supper every time you get together and that you pray for people and things happen. And I said, and they said, every time I've wanted to go to church, they've never had the Lord's Supper, or they just had it and I missed it. And I never know when it's going to be. And I just feel like I want to do that. And the other people said, me too. And that's why the crowd had grown. Isn't that strange? In most people's thinking, it's strange. So I thought, well, how awesome. So I took my Bible and I have a purse. It's the ugliest thing. I think I got it for 50 cents on a bargain. But anyway, it has flowers all over it. And inside I've got a little plate and I've got a glass, a mug, and I've got a little thing with crackers in it and with grape juice. Every once in a while I have to look at that grape juice because it's getting strong. But anyway, I would take that purse and my Bible and I'd go out to Barton Springs, and Mary knows where Barton Springs is because we soaked up a lot of that cold water in the summertime. Anyway, I went out there and I sat down on the rock wall where people would have to go by to go pay to go in. Okay? So I would sit there and I would just sit and had my Bible and I would just be quietly whispering. There's more ways than kill a cat than just stringing it up. And so I would read. I was reading. And I saw a lady's behind right over there. She had sat down on the rocks. And in a little bit, she moved a little closer, and I was quieter. Pretty soon, she was right up against my leg. And she said, what are you reading? And I said, I'm reading about the Lord's Supper. She said, oh, you are? I said, do you know about it? And she said, well, I keep going to church every once in a while, but I never do get to take it. I said, don't you kind of miss it? Don't you kind of miss it? She said, oh, yes, I do. And I said, well, did you know about Isaiah 52? No, what is it? It could have been on page 0, you know, on the other side of Revelation. You know, it wouldn't have made any difference. It was just between the two covers. Anyway, I said, would you like to know about it? Yes. By then, there's a crowd because they got curious about what I was reading. And then they got curious about what's wrong with that woman coming over there talking to that weird person. And so they were all standing here. So I just started reading it a little louder to be sure she could hear it. Mega mouth. But anyway, I read Isaiah 52:13 down and Isaiah 53. And then I turned over to 1 Corinthians 10, read that. And by then the people were bowing their heads. Bowing their heads. They couldn't hear everything, but I got most of it. And finally I said, would you like to take the Lord's Supper? I just happened to have it in a wheelbarrow. And I said, I just happened to have it. She said, oh, yes. So I got it out, and she moved over a little bit, and I sat it down in her little cup, in my little cup, and the bread. And I took my time, and paper napkins. And I told her about it, and I said, do you realize that I don't know anything about your life, and you don't need to know about mine because it's been pretty bad. But I said, do you realize that Jesus has paid for everything we've ever thought, said, or done, intentionally or stupidly, all our sin in our life? One big thing at the cross when he did that. I said, all I gave him to offer him was my sin and selfishness. And he was so bad off, he took it and paid for it. And she cried. There were several that cried. And then I thought, how pitiful. They're not getting fed anywhere. So I fed. So I gave her that. We took the bread, and then she took that, and I prayed for her. And those people just kind of stood around looking at each other and wondering what happened. But something happened in their lives. They were exposed. They caught it. There wasn't a 7 to 14 day indoctrination of bugs. They got the message. They got the thing. And I know that they have, I didn't have enough there, but had a little medicine bottle about this tall. And she sat down by me for the longest time and listened. And so whenever the people came to my house, I asked them, and that's what they said. They said they came because of the Lord's Supper. Well, he said in his word that it says in his word that he paid for all of our sin, not just 1 or 2 or 1 to 10. He took care of 1. He took care of all of that mess. And we're all, isn't it interesting? Now, I'm real bad about names. I couldn't run for politics because I wouldn't remember the sucker's name. I would forget what his name is. And I've done so many portraits of people. I'm an artist of a fashion. But I've done so many portraits that I wouldn't remember that person's name for anything. It's just awful. But I've got a treat for you. My name is the same as the Lord's. We are all under disguise, under the SKIYs is in disguise. You're called by the name of the Lord. You're called by the name of the Lord. You're called by the name. We're relatives, brothers and sisters. Like it or not, you're stuck with me. But I enjoy thinking that the Lord took the time and his heart and his soul and his suffering and everything for such a sorry piece of junk as I am. You know, some of y'all know this, I was a reject and given away when I was 16 hours old. I didn't have time to sin. I was so little and young and 16 hours old, so I was given away, and some people started adopting me at the age of 16 hours old. They should have waited to see if it was going to work out for a while. But they had me 6 months. Then they gave me back, and the lady's health broke. And then my final parents adopted me. And they were stuck with me, you know. Skinny. By then, I was just real 6 months old. You know, big deal. Useless piece of little thing. But anyway, God calls us by his name. And it says in Deuteronomy, the 28th chapter, it says, if you hearken and do these commandments and everything, these are the blessings, 1 through 14. And one of them I really do like because I've seen it happen. It says, and the nations will see, not only see with their eyes, but they will see with their heart. They may not like what they see, but they're going to see that you're called by the name of the Lord, and they'll be afraid of you. I've had people afraid of me that I didn't even know. And I used to work with children that had been abused and battered and pitched out and everything. I thought, shoot, that could have been me. I was pitched out anyway. I was pitched out so many times, I was like a baseball, batter up. But anyway, battered out, But golly, I've had an exciting life. But anyway, all of these things that happened to us, I've been sick as a junkyard dog so many times that I think it's part of life. I've gotten used to. But anyway, every time, if it hadn't been for some of those things that I've come through, I wouldn't be where I am today. And when somebody comes to me and they tell me they've got cancer or something like that, I say, been there, had that, and I have. And so they say, don't you worry? I said, nope. I said, it's victory here and victory there. I'm victorious here. And the doctor said, oh, I don't know if your mama's going to make it this time. And I said, I won't be caught dead in the funeral home. And he got mad at me because he'd been trying to keep me alive all that time. And I didn't look like I was going to be anything but white toilet paper, in a roll. But anyway, I said, we're victorious here. And we're victorious when we go be with the Lord. And we're going to find out things when we get there that we were really living low on the hog here in comparison once we get there. And it says, and you'll see him face to face. That makes me want to jump against the wall because I don't know what else to do. And one time when I worked with these children that were badly abused, if you put yourself in their place, you can help them a lot. One boy, his name was Billy. Bless his heart, he had been so mistreated. And he was such a reject so many times that it was normal, And he got behind the chest of drawers, and I pulled the chest of drawers out, and I said, can I visit with you? Can I visit with you, Billy? Yeah. And I said, I was a bad little kid. I got my little brother in trouble all the time. My little brother was born 2 years after I was adopted because they were so busy messing with me as an infant, 3 pounds, that they forgot to want to have any children. They had an overdose already with me. And so then he was born 2 years, a month, and a day later. So he's the sweetest thing in the world. And he's got the patience of Job having me in the family. But anyway, that little boy, I got behind the chest of drawers and I said, Billy, this happened to me and this happened. Oh, really? And we visited so good, and pretty soon he was up and he said, I'm getting hungry, aren't you? I said, yeah. I thought you never would get through talking so I could eat. So we got up and we ate, and he was like he was like you trade in an old car to get a new one, He had somebody that cared. We have to care out of ourselves. We have to care out of ourselves. We may look like we're slow moving sometimes. Not everybody's like Gabe that is just one big pogo stick. Spreading his joy to all of us slow-moving turtles, And I'm amazed at you. I am amazed at you. You just sprang through the house. You sprang out of one thing into another, and it's an encouragement to everybody around you. And I know you get pooped out. If you say you do, I'm going to pray for you to be a little more honest, because I know you get tired every once in a while. But you have something nobody else has got. You've got something nobody else has got. And you've got to be smiling and sneaky about it. Sometimes when I'm walking down the street, I like to go downtown in Austin if my brother won't go with me because he's got a list, grocery list. It looks like squares on the roll of toilet paper, and everything is listed in the description, and there's no time to go and look at the fashions. I probably look as fashionless as you can get. But at least I've got clothes on, so there you go. But anyway, when I'm walking down the street, I'm thinking about the Lord and I'm looking at people. And everybody I see is either lost or saved. Now, there's some that are lost, but they're on the way. They're on the way. They're just about to fall in. If you wade in a creek long enough, you'll get a swift spot and it'll suck you under. Well, we've got to be one of those spots that suck them under, And I'll be going down the street and I'll just kind of smile to myself and I'll look up and I must have been smiling out loud because, not laughing out loud, but smiling out loud because people say, huh? I'll say, oh, huh? And little kids do that, and older people, even old codgers like me. And they'll smile at you, and they don't realize that they're smiling in the face of the Lord. We're to shine. And I drew a picture here. I used to work as a security guard called a rent-a-cop. So since none of you all are the police, then you won't look down your nose at me. But I was a rent-a-cop. And they didn't give me a gun. They gave me a flashlight and useless things. I had enough stuff hanging on me that to change clothes, everything fell on the floor, And I apprehended one burglar one night, and he was going to put a block of wood in a door when somebody went in one of these big condominiums where you start cheap at about $1 million, one of those cheap little run things. Anyway, he was going to put a piece of wood there so that when the next person came and went in, that would keep it unlocked. It wouldn't lock. And then they could go in and go up the stairs and burglarize. Well, I was looking at a thing on the monitor, and it was raining real big. And I was looking, and I saw this person, and I saw him going to that door, and he didn't go in. So I figured what he was doing. So I went over there, and I got somebody to stay at the monitor, and I went around in the dark in the bushes, and it was pouring down rain. And I came up behind him, and I jumped him. I learned the art of self-defense in raising children. I was teaching my son something, and I threw him so far. He threw me so far, I landed on the concrete instead of the mattress, which made me kind of crooked for a while. But anyway, I jumped this guy, and I know it was a surprise because I'm not very tall, and I jumped on him and knocked him down, and I sat on him and put his feet across his rear end and sat on them. And I had his head like this, and I had his hands behind his back. And he had thrown his .25 caliber gun in the bushes because he was so surprised. Well, I sat on him, and the guy watching the monitor said, "Oh, I believe she may need some backup." Well, wait long enough and we'll die together, out there. So here came the cops finally, and they took him off. And the landscape guys the next day found this .25 caliber gun in the bushes. Well, that was wonderful. So about a week later, here comes a guy, and he's going to do about the same thing, but he was using a different door. So I grabbed him, and it was still raining. It came raining again, and we were down on the river, and I threw him down and held on to him, and it got so my reputation was getting better by the day. Anyway, I went and held him down, and he took his knife away, which was an 8-inch switchblade. You press a button and the blade comes out and you're in business. Well, he had been in business under the bridge, shall we say, anointing his friend with a knife. His friend was still there 2 days later. under the bridge. But they took him home, and they took him to jail, and I kept his knife and gave it to a friend not long ago because I thought it was gross. But it was really a big, big, ugly thing. But I prayed for these people, and I prayed for the people I worked for and worked with. And when I worked with one guy, and he was a lieutenant, that's a big deal, That's touched me and be blessed kind of person. And everybody had a coffee break, a cookie break, and cigarette break. And I had a Bible break. Well, that really teed him off because I'd go in the corner and he wondered what I was up to. And then he found out it was a Bible, and that really made him mad. Well, 10 years passed. 10 years, 15 years passed. And my brother and I were in Walmart. No, it was Home Depot. We were in Home Depot getting some odds and ends or just looking around. And here's this tall guy comes, a real handsome fella. I didn't recognize him. He said, "Peggy, you remember me? I was your boss." And I said, and he made fun of me all the time. And he would set off alarms so that the elevators would go up and would lock in midair. And if anybody's in there, they were hollering and yelling, and I'd have to go get them out and walk across a little metal thing and pry the door open to get the people out. And he did it to me. He just had a wonderful time. I dreaded going to work. I took aspirin to go and aspirin to stay and aspirin to come home. And my stomach was a mess. But anyway, so he said, "Don't you remember me? I was your boss when you were in charge of those 3 buildings. I had to go through a little kind of a alleyway in midair." And I said, "Lieutenant, what's your name, Lieutenant?" See, I couldn't run from far office for anything, especially president. But anyway, he said, "Yeah, that's me." He said, "I'm just like you now." I said, "What do you mean?" I was wondering what kind of like you he was going to be. He said, "I've gotten saved." And he said, "I've taken my wife and my wife and my children have taken me back." And he said, "We're doing good. And we live here in Austin now, and we're going to church all the time." I said, "Oh, you're another fanatic?" He said, "Yes, I am." And he said, "I hated you. And I'm sorry I made it such a hard time on you." He said, "Do you know what happened to me?" He said, "When they transferred you, you transferred to someplace else." And I did transfer because I just couldn't hold out any longer with him. He was making it too hard for me. He said, "Do you know what happened to me?" I said, "No." He said, "Well, right after you left, I got transferred way out north." He was already coming from outside of Buda, which is about 50, 60 miles from here. And he said, "They transferred me out to a big warehouse way out in North Austin." And he said there was nothing in the warehouse. There was no air conditioner. There was no heater in the winter. And it didn't have anything in there but me, and I had to guard it. And I didn't even have nobody to talk to. He said, "That's when I got saved." God loved him so much he had mercy on him and put him in solitary confinement. And I drew a picture of this, and this is the warehouse, and there he was with a flashlight. And you can take a flashlight and you can turn off all the lights, close the windows, and it can be pitch dark outside, and you can be smart, with your flashlight. And you go over to this corner and you've got a light, but it's black as smut out here. There he is with his little light in the corner right there. But when you're standing in the middle here and you pull a string and a light comes on, it spreads everywhere. So you've got to pull that string on people. but so that you can turn the light on of the gospel. And you can let them know that you're not Mr. or Mrs. I'm never anything but gold and silver and spotless and clean and never done a thing. I've done it all but kill somebody, and if I could have gotten by with it, I probably would have. But I was afraid the law would get me. But anyway, you've got to pull the word, and faith comes by hearing, and hearing by the word of God. The angels are standing around, and you can wave this book until you get your arms tired. But when you speak it, it says in Psalm 103, the 20th, the angels listen, hearken. Listen for the voice of his word. His word is his will, his joy, his desire. So speak it. I read it out loud. I whisper it if I have to. But it's still, and he said he sent his word, and a lady came, I won't say her last name, but Betty came to my house with her little boy. He is 4 years old. And she was not married anymore, and she had been by herself. And she called and she said, I need prayer. I saw you at a prayer meeting, and somebody said you'd pray for somebody, no matter what it was, you'd pray for them. And I said, all right. So she came out to my house, and I said, tell your little boy not to climb my oak trees, because if he falls, he could be badly hurt. He's just 4 years old. She said, well, don't climb the trees. Well, that means climb the trees. As soon as Mama leaves, climb that sucker tree. Okay, so we were inside, and my daughter Sarah came running in and said, Mama, come quick to the driveway, because that little boy climbed that oak tree, and he's not breathing. And boy, she went, woo! She went ballistic. She screamed and ran outside in the yard, and I picked him up, and here, sure enough, he wasn't breathing all right. And I prayed for him and spoke life to him and commanded the breath of God to come into him. And he begins breathing. And oh, she said, oh, thank you for praying for him. I said, no, thank the Lord for saving you, his life. So we went in the house, and I said, better tell him to stay in the house. I'll give him a color book and some crayons, and he can mark all he wants to, So, and keep him off of us. And so she said, well, I used to really be crazy about someone, and he is a traveling person, and he's gone all the time, and he's moved, and I've moved, and I don't know where he is, and I wanted to talk to him. And she had lost one of her children, had died of measles or something, and so she had this little boy, 4-year-old, and she said, I don't know what to do. And I said, all right, well, I'll pray, and you just listen, don't say anything, I don't want somebody to say, yeah, if it's your will, Lord. I can't say. They'll attack them, real quick. But anyway, so I prayed, and I asked the Lord to open the door somehow for him to call her. My phone rang, and it was her daughter. And her daughter said, Mama, so-and-so called here from Dallas or Fort Worth, and I don't know how he got your number since it's not listed, but he just called and he wants to talk to you. That was him. He wants to talk to you, Mama. What do I do? She said, give him this number. So the lady gave the daughter the number, and when he called again, she told him, and he called. I became totally invisible. I never saw her jerk a kid up so quick and get it in the car and gone, boy. She was disappeared over the hill. And they had gotten together over the phone, and they were going to reestablish their acquaintance together. And she had had so many hard things. And he said he sent his word. And pray his word. Pray his word. And I said, Lord, I praise you and thank you. I don't know what to do about so-and-so. They're bleeding. They bashed their teeth in, and da-da-da-da-da. But it says in Ezekiel 16:6, as I passed by and saw you lying polluted in your blood, I said, in your blood, live. And as I saw you lying wasted in your blood, I said, in your blood, live. And it stops all the blood. And the bleeding quit. And if you got a bunch of kids, you need that like a Band-Aid in a box. Because if it's not the nose, it's some other part, going. But anyway, so when it says be still and know, well, you be still and know and get all excited. And then the next thing you find out is you're getting wisdom and realization and knowledge about what His will is and how close you are getting to Him. And the reason why is I am the I am. He's the one in charge. He's exciting. Whenever you talk to anybody, this man that had to have a 5-part heart bypass that I told some of y'all about, he came knowing full well I was going to pray for him. And when he got well, I don't know where he is now, but once in a while I'll see him pass by in a car, so I guess he's still, or he's driving as a ghost, but he's driving his car. We have such a load to tell people. Read the Word. And if you say, in the beginning, God, that's good enough for me. Because He's going to say, that's me, all right. That's me. And I have had ill. I wouldn't have known I had cancer unless the Lord woke me up in the night and told me not to worry about my child, the youngest one, Mary's little sister, that had a hole the size of a nickel in her heart, between the two chambers of her heart. And there wasn't nobody operated on babies for that, little kids for that. And she was about 6 years old. Anyway, I was squalling every day for a whole week. Oh, I just cried and cried. Well, I was saved when I was a little kid, but I didn't know anything. I didn't know God did anything, I just knew that He was there. Anyway, when He said, don't worry about the child, there's something worse wrong with you. And then He said a name. I didn't know that part. You don't have to know all your parts to have children. You just have them, And I didn't know, but I knew it was Him. He appeared in my room with the light was breathing, and He was breathing, and He was standing there, but the light was so bright I could just see His form, but not His face. And He had come right through the dresser and the wall and told me that, and I knew it was true. Then I wondered how in the world I was going to get to the doctor without Sarah, the young one, telling everything, just reveal, just one big mouth of revealing. Just yakety, yakety, yak, a reporter. She could have worked for a newspaper. But anyway, but I did go, and sure enough, when the doctors, they immediately put me in the hospital and said that if I hadn't come when I did, there wouldn't have been anything that could be done if I'd had one sign or symptom. And the Lord is, if we listen to Him, we're going to hear a lot of things. When I see people with earphones in their ears and they've got music going, I thought, boy, they've got rattled music and rattled brains at the same time. Because God can't hear through that. You can't hear Him through that. He doesn't come and bang on your head and say, hey, dummy, I'm talking to you. Do you have time to listen? And I listened, and that's when I listened when Mary and Mike were praying, and I was listening, and I wanted to come here. Mike and Mary were praying. Then Mary called, and I was ready to get in the car. I had to feed the animals, or I'd have left them starving and tell them to learn how to pray and fast. But it's so exciting in the Lord. You're standing alone in Him as a relationship. Get close to Him. Turn off the television. Sometimes I'd like to turn off a whole lot of things, and you can't shut up everything. And if it's not something here, it'll be somebody going by with a boom box on the outside of their car. Well, some doctor is going to make lots of money off of a deaf person because they've got the decibels ringing in their brains and not any in their heart. But when I'm listening to what you all say and what Mike is saying and what you were saying the other night, I have the tears of my heart are stirred in my eyes. And I get truly, I have to say I'm one of those fanatics, but it's so awesome and makes me have such a desire to see Jesus face to face. And when I had to go and have some surgery one time, and nobody was there at all for me, a hand was on my shoulder. From the time I saw the three doctors look like a bunch of buzzards sitting over there on stools with their mask on and their hands with towels on them, and covers on their feet, they were in disguise. But anyway, there I was, and they were going to put me under, and I looked over there, and I felt a hand on my shoulder. And that hand stayed on my, and I had asked somebody to call my dad and tell him to come and everything. Nobody came. And it stayed on my shoulder until they rolled me into my room. So it stayed the whole time I was in recovery for 3 hours. And then down the hall, and then in my room, and then the hand was gone. He's with you now. We have something in common. You didn't come here to listen to about Walmart or HEB. You came in the name of Jesus. That's all I want to advertise. But I'm a witness to know what he did. And I went to the bent can store, Blanco. I mean, they pray for the cans because they may have varmint in them somewhere. But I was in the store and I had $2.49, and that's all I had. And I was about to have a coffee fit because I'd been out of coffee several days, and I decided that I was going to splurge and treat myself. Well, the smallest can was more than that. It was nearly $4. And I said, Lord, you said in Deuteronomy 28 that this is my store. So if this is my store, that's too much. And I've got $2.49. Now, I may be seen talking to myself, but I'm not talking to myself. I'm talking to the Lord. So I said, I'm just thanking you that somehow or other. And here came a young man just running fast down the hall, down the thing, and he had a Marks-a-Lot in his hand. And he said, excuse me, ma'am, I forgot to change the price on this. And he changed it to $2.49. And I said, I sure do thank you for doing that. And may the Lord bless you 100 times over for that cut price, for doing that for me. And he looked at me like I was speaking from a foreign language, asking for 100-fold return of blessing. And just like with that man that needed a 5-part bypass, I said, Lord, I'm supposed to love him because he's my neighbor as I love myself. So if I don't love myself, I don't love my neighbor. So I've turned it back. And I said, Lord, I ask that you notice the things that he's done to help. And his lady friend, he and his lady friend have done to help me several times. And I ask that you bless him and do these things for him. Now, he has no memory of any of that. It was just like he had his ears plugged, but his spirit heard it. I know that. But you have a special thing. You may not look like you're exciting to anybody, but your spirit is excited for somebody. Your heart is, the Lord is going to want you to want those people to get saved. And I said to Mary this morning, I said, it bothers me. It really grieves me to think people will go up at the altar call and people will go up and they'll be crying and literally repentant and wanting and getting saved, wanting to get saved. And everybody's saying, oh, there's another one. No, not paying attention to them. And I said, they should rejoice. There should be a standing, glorious ovation for someone else who is calling on the name of the Lord. And they're not. They're not excited. Well, crud, I get excited for them because they're opening a door and they need encouragement. And I'm wondering how many people don't care. That bothers me because I'd sure hate for them to go to operate on me sometime because they might be chewing bubble gum and playing the puzzle stuff on the side over here while they're whacking on me. Well, whacking on somebody's soul is the same. And I'm excited about it. And I have a cold hot tub. It hadn't worked for years. But I baptized a lot of people in that thing, and I think the ants and the rats have eaten the lining, eaten the wires out. But I've got some 4 mil plastic, and I'm going to line it and put some bright duct tape around it. And anytime anybody comes in winter or summer, if you're going to get baptized in a creek, nobody's going to warm it up first. So don't get so picky. I had a 27-foot across swimming pool in Austin, and I baptized a young man and his little wife, and they had a 9-month-old baby, and the Lord had been dealing with her to get saved, and she was from Chile and didn't speak any English, and I didn't speak any Chile. And her boyfriend over here, I'd tell him, I wouldn't tell him, if you don't get saved, I'm not going to baptize you. I'm not going to marry you. They wanted to get married, but the Lord had told them to, both of them, to get married. Talk to her, and she didn't know if it would be okay with him. And he didn't want to say anything to her because he didn't know if she was going to take off, And they had this little fat baby, little fat thing. And it was real winter cold. Oh my goodness, I wouldn't have taken a bath, much less getting in swimming, in that cold of water. Anyway, I talked to him and I started reading the Word. And I read about charity, love. You do this, this, and this, and this, and this. And she cried. I said, what's the matter? And he said, oh, no. He said she wants to get saved. I said, what about you? He said, I think God's been talking to me about that for quite a while. I said, well, would you like to pray about it right now? And he prayed, and then she said whatever he told her to talk to her about it. And I said, well, I tell you what, I've got that big swimming pool out there. It was 26 degrees. Fresh air. And I said, I have some extra clothes in the closet. So I got some clothes of mine and something for him, and my brother's clothes is that his clothes have been baptized more than he has. But anyway, they put them on, and we went out there, and the baby was all wrapped in the blanket. So I baptized him, and I said, now I'm going to hold the baby, and you baptize her. And I said, now that won't give her anybody to baptize, but this is the way it's going to be. And I baptized him, and I baptized her, and she started saying things so fast. I see and know, I had trouble with that. I can get in trouble with those two words, and that's the only Spanish I speak. But anyway, she was saying those things, and he started speaking in tongues, and that's what she was doing. And so they got saved and filled with the Holy Spirit, and she went home with a Spanish Bible, and he went home with one in English because he couldn't read Spanish. So we don't know. We're just there looking for a place to go, We should be stalkers. I'm a stalker. I don't act like it, but I'm a sneaky stalker. Start talking about it. Because you are hidden, you have a hidden quality that she can't do. She can play spoon, so you may want to initiate her into your orchestra. But you have a special thing that only you can do. And I have a special thing that only I can do. And everybody's a character. Some of us are so quiet don't even know it, but we got a sneaky little smile on our faces every once in a while. It's a joy. Anyway, I've kept you too long, but please, there's one thing that I asked a lady, and I said, let me read you a scripture. And she said, all right. She was real enthused. And it's Romans. And I said, let me read you this, and you tell me if you'd like to do this. And it says, Romans, the 12th chapter, I beseech ye, therefore, brethren, by the mercy of God, that you present your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable unto God, which is your reasonable service. And I read it to her again, and I said, I beseech you, by the mercies of God, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable unto God, your reasonable service. And then the second verse, and be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is the good and acceptable and perfect will of God. Would you be interested in that, in doing that? Would you be interested in selling out? Selling out your body to God on the altar alongside with Him? She said, I'm not ready for that. I said, well, He was ready at the cross for that, for me. And I was a reject from the start. And I said, when you give yourself as a living sacrifice, you're just giving up. You're saying, I like to see a gunfight. I like somebody robbing a bank that's going to hold their hands up. They may not get shot. But when you raise your hands, you are worshiping and selling out. And I said, you're sold out to the mortgage on your house. You're sold out on to paying for your car. You're sold out to keep up with your boyfriend and be sure he likes chocolate pudding. And your perfume, which may be nothing but Vaseline with a perfume on it. But I said, you're sold out to everything. But now it's time to sacrifice on the altar to the Lord, your body. And I said, whenever you've got a bad habit going, I just loved what y'all, I don't know were you the one that was talking last night? Which one? Yeah. Changed your shirt. Shouldn't have done that. I wouldn't have recognized. I'm really bad, huh? But anyway, pray for me. Anyway, I said to her, we all sacrifice ourselves, and we have an idol, a lust. It may be like chocolate pudding or something like that. Or it may be your favorite television store, which I'm trying to get deliverance from NCIS detective thing on TV. Because frankly, it's gotten so bad that I have to kind of close my eyes every once in a while. So I might as well just close the television from now on. But anyway, I thought I was getting rid of my television. A friend of mine came and she saw I had a little black and white television. It was about as big as a postage card. And it was black and white. No, that was a 4-letter word because you couldn't, no color. Well, she came and she felt so sorry for me, and my brother had given me that little bitty thing. And so here came a truck up the hill, and it was her father, her brother, and her cousin carrying a great big console that was already older than Noah's Ark, but it looked good even if it didn't work, you know. It looked like a piece of delicious furniture. But anyway, she had it 10 years and she brought it to me, and I was getting rid of I gave away my black and white thinking I was finally rid of it, everything, because it was interfering with my brains. But anyway, or what was left of them. But anyway, they brought that and set it up. So when I moved out here, I'd had the thing so long. My goodness, it was so long. It was dusty. May had rats and mice in it for all I know. But I brought it out here, and my daughter and son-in-law came. Mary's sister and brother-in-law. They came, and it was snowy. They said, "That's a terrible television. You need to get rid of that thing." I said, "Well, I'm going to pretty soon, but right now it's okay. I don't watch anything but the news and weather and maybe one program." I even put an extra wire outside on and wired it to the part of the post on the yard so that I could get that only thing, and it goes every once in a while. But anyway, so they said, "Well, you can't have such a piece of junk in here like that." And I said, just leave me alone. I'm fine. I don't want anything. They said, "Well, we bought you a new one." Oh, and I was trying to get rid of it. I'd given away so many televisions. My aunt died and she had 5. And I inherited them, and I gave them. They were 19 inches big. I got rid of all of them. I felt like I was liberated. But anyway, so help me, Lucy and Neil brought me this big television. And they took my old one and they said, I said, "What are you going to do with it?" "We're going to put it in the truck and we're going to take it back to Austin and dump it along the road somewhere." I said, No. I said, "Take it out to the end of my drive onto the county road right there where the grass is and neatly set it down like that, and somebody will come and get it that can maybe thinks, everybody's got an electrician in their family, or they think they are. They may electrocute themselves like I did myself. I used a Band-Aid on a piece of naked wire one time, and I was raptured against the wall on the other side of the living room without touching the floor. But anyway, so they put it out in front of my driveway on the way as they were going to go in 9 miles.